Welcome to the last live stream events of today's programme for National Numeracy Day. I have to say, I think they've saved the best till last. We'll be finding out in the next half an hour how we can all make our money go further and how to manage it better. I am Claire Barrett. I'm the consumer editor here at the Financial Times in the heart of the City of London. You might have heard me on LBC Radio presenting the FT's Money Clinic podcast, or even read my column inside the money section of the FT Weekend. Now, don't forget, if you're at school, anywhere around the world, you can actually get the Financial Times for free. Just search for FT Schools online and we can sort that out for you. But we've got lots and lots of great people today who are ready to share their stories, tips and advice on how improving number confidence can help us manage your money better. A few faces there I'm sure you'll recognise if you're a fan of Strictly Come Dancing. Now, let's first hear from Joseph Wosu, who is the founder and host of the Black Millennial Money podcast. Welcome, Joseph. Hi.
Yeah, great to be on.
Excellent. We've got you there. The technology is working. Now, you host a weekly podcast all about how to make, keep, invest and spend money. Pretty comprehensive. You focus on sharing information and knowledge with your audiences, but you yourself, I like the position you're coming from because you're happy to admit that you haven't always felt so in control of your finances. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so when you turn 18 and everyone starts talking to you about credit cards, and somehow certain credit companies get your name and number and can post you whatever they like. I got some really bad advice in my early 20s after all of that. And everyone was saying I needed a credit card in order to build my credit score. I didn't have a bad credit score because I had already bought a few things using finance and paid them off. So my credit score was actually great. It was borderline perfect. But everyone kept saying I needed to get a credit card, but no one said how to use one. So I ended up in around £36,000 worth of debt, and it spiraled very quickly because initially I applied for, I think it was about £1,000 worth of credit, but they looked at my credit score, saw I had a good credit score, and gave me a £3,000 credit limit. I thought that meant I must be great with money, and then they increased it to about 4,500, and then I started getting a bit more confident, thinking, okay, I must be really, really great with money. How good am I? Let me see how much credit they'll give me. And that became 7 and went up to 11 on one card. And I just carried on spending. I didn't really know how to manage. Initially, the plan was just to use it for travel. But then you start thinking, one dinner here won't hurt. Yeah, it would be great to go to the cinema. And for all of those things, I'm going to need a new outfit, right? So it all
You
starts
only
to
live
compound.
once, as they say.
Well, yeah, you've got a YOLO sometimes, right? But clearly that went too far for me and ended up in, it started off at £25,000. And then I thought, yeah, let's do some balance transfers to figure this out and get on top of it. They hadn't quite learnt my lesson, spent what was on the balance transfers. Then it ballooned to 36,000. And it got to the point where I would be in Tesco needing to buy something like food or something that's a life necessity, right? I'm not going out to fancy dinners, and I would be pulling out my credit card at the time, and just knowing that I was doing something terrible by spending more because the debt had ballooned, and I would have headaches at the thought of spending money, and it'll feel like I was breaking out in a sweat, and everyone was looking at me knowing that, yep, he's about to increase his credit card spend, and I just really couldn't see a way out of it for a long, long time.
Now, obviously, how you got out of debt, the positive story and the lesson you had to learn the hard way, that is a big part of what you talk about in your podcast, Black Millennial Money. But tell us briefly about the achievement you've made, just to inspire anyone out there who's listening to that and suffering in silence, as many of us do with debt problems, and thinking, that's pretty much my own situation. How can you give them hope?
Yeah, so the good news is, I'll give you the headlines to start off with. I've paid off all of the debt, paid off £36,000 totally, and I bought a house last year. I got engaged, and life is great at the moment, right? But
that's amazing.
Thank you. And that was like 2 years and 8 months it took to get to that other side of things. And it was a point. It got to the point where I was just sick to my stomach. That it got so bad. I had to accept that I had been, to quote one of my friends, Emmanuel Suquo, who says I was living on 150% of my bank balance. I was living far beyond my means. I was living a lot. All of my friends thought I was good with money. My family thought I was good with money, but I was living on debt. And
Mm.
the numbers were my saving grace because emotionally it was really tough. Like those moments where I'd be getting headaches and feeling like I'm breaking out in sweats and could literally hear my own heartbeat as I was entering my PIN number. That was all emotionally driven. The getting on top of the numbers and the math side of things was my only saving grace. It was the way I could see the path out, because now it just became a numbers game. It was addition and subtraction. How much could I pay in order to reduce the amount of money that I owe? And that gave me a roadmap, that gave me a timeline, that gave me hope. And every time I paid some money off, every time I looked at the numbers, I subtracted the interest from what I had paid, I knew that I was heading in the right direction. So that's ultimately what helped me get to where I am today, and is still my guide, where it's just really, really simple maths, plus and minus, and I just need to stay away from expensive dinners and new outfits really on credit. So other than that, the maths, the numbers really, really helped me steer a path through.
Well, you're looking very dapper today, Joseph. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. If you guys who are watching this at home or wherever want to put a question to Joseph, share your own experiences, don't forget we have got a chat button. And we will come to some of those questions at the end. And it's not just credit cards, of course, nowadays. It's buy now, pay later. But let's move on to Kathy. Well, Kathy, into the stream now. Now, Kathy has a very important job because she leads the education element of the social impact programme at PFG, which is the Provident Financial Group. So, hi, Kathy. Thanks for joining us today. Now, you strike me, you know, somebody who does the job that you do, you must be a numbers person, but I'm told that you weren't always confident with maths. What was your starting point and what on earth was holding you back?
So, yes, to say I'm not a maths person is to say the least. So when I was at school, I remember when I was at primary school, I loved maths, and I even used to have to take it home. Then when I got to secondary school, things changed, and I was very shy at school. And when I remember sitting in maths lessons, and I didn't ask the teacher for help if I didn't understand, because I would feel silly, and like everybody was laughing at me if I didn't know how to do it. And that got worse and worse. And my dad used to help me with my homework quite a lot. In fact, he almost used to do it for me, which wasn't a good thing. But I remember one time he was really stressed at work, and I thought, I'm going to sit and I'm going to do this homework. And I did my best with it. I handed it in. And when I collected my book, I'd got 2 out of 10. And it said, "This is atrocious, see me." And I didn't go see the teacher, and I never went to a maths lesson again. And I just kind of thought, well, it's all right because I don't need maths. Now, I left home when I was very young, and me and my partner at the time got into quite a lot of debt because I didn't understand money. I didn't understand budgeting or anything like that. And we used to live on benefits. So as soon as we got our benefits every 2 weeks, we would spend it. And so our debts began to really spiral out of control. And it wasn't until that relationship ended and I found that what was happening was, if I could see my money, because all these direct debits were coming out here, there and everywhere, and I kind of buried in my head because I'd think, oh, there's some money left in the bank. But I actually knew that that money wasn't for me, but because it was there, I took it. So what I realised was that if I took my money out of the bank when I got paid, and I separated it into envelopes, and then when the bills came, I had an envelope for bills. I would take the money out of that envelope and I would go to the bank and I would pay it in cash. And I really found that that worked for me because I could actually see it, I could understand it, and it made it almost real that I could see it there in front of me rather than just having these numbers on a bank statement that meant nothing to me really.
Well, that is a really valuable lesson. I mean, nowadays, I know it's harder for us to do things in cash because the coronavirus has rather killed it off in areas like central London where I work. But nevertheless, digital innovations, goals, savings goals, being able to split payments, split different accounts in digital banking apps, that is really the same kind of method that used. It's the method that the really important thing. The means may have changed, but a great lesson there. Now, Kathy, can you just briefly tell us how you feel after improving your number confidence and how it's helped you to feel more in control when you're making decisions about your money?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, Claire, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Like Joseph was saying earlier, you'd be putting your pin in and you would feel sick and you would feel, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be taking this money out. But now I feel much more confident, I'm far more in control, and it's also helped my well-being, because when anybody's talking to me about, so for instance, at my age now, I'm looking at my pension, and when I'm speaking to our financial advisor about that, it's not, I kind of feel the maths anxiety coming on, but I'm able to control it because I understand it and I know. And what really helped me was obviously getting to know national numeracy through work and realising, oh, it's not just me that feels like this, actually.
No.
It's really, really common. And so I used the National Numeracy Challenge. I was able to use it, and I still use it now. So I use it at my own pace, in my own time. I can tell you I spent months and months on fractions, but I think that's what I needed to get that in my head. And so now I don't feel as scared by it.
Well, you faced your fears.
Yeah, I don't dread the postman coming with letters, in brown envelopes and thinking, oh no. I'm in control of my money. It doesn't control me anymore.
Well, I couldn't have summed it up better myself, Kathy. And don't forget, if you're looking to boost your confidence with maths, just search for Numeracy Day, look for the Numeracy Challenge, and those tricky areas. For Kathy, it was fractions. I made it still very much algebra because I did the challenge myself last year. You can improve the bits that you need to. Now, I am next going to introduce James Jones into the stream. Now, James is the head of consumer affairs at Experian. Experian is one of the biggest credit referencing agencies in Britain. So what Joseph was talking about, his credit score, basically James is the guy at the end of the line with the calculator working it out. Not quite, but James leads Experian's public education program. He guides and helps people to understand credit reporting, credit scoring, and also identity fraud, which is a growing issue. Well, thanks for joining us, James. A lot of the work you do is helping to demystify the process of how credit scoring works and how people can build theirs up. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, we spend a lot of time explaining credit scores to the public. It's actually a poorly understood area of personal finance, we think, but a really important one. So I think it's vital we do the work we do to sort of lift the lid on, what's on a credit report and how lenders use credit scores and that sort of thing. And we do spend a lot of time talking about that 3-digit all-important number, your credit score, because we know lenders use credit scoring to help decide, firstly, whether you get credit that you apply for, but also in some cases, what you're ultimately provided with in terms of how much they're prepared to lend to you, and sometimes at what interest rate. So it's absolutely critical. And I think, confidence with everyday maths, it's of course, it's a key life skill, but especially so when we think about managing money, because I think number confidence is just a real enabler for all aspects of personal finance, from understanding income, tax, managing everyday spending such as regular bills, reviewing your budget, shopping around, switching to better deals, understanding interest rates, those APRs that we see advertised all over the place, and even getting the best deals at the supermarket. So it really is a key aspect of making good financial decisions, getting to grips with money, becoming more number confident.
And I mean, as we heard from Joseph earlier, he applied for a credit card thinking he'd get £1,000. He actually got £3,500. But while they might give you the opportunity to spend that money, we have to learn within ourselves, looking at all of those things you said, the budget, the income, the expenditure, reconciling the two, in terms of how much we can actually afford to spend.
It's absolutely critical, and that's one of the things we try to guide the public on, as well as, of course, the role we play guiding banks and lenders on the decisions that they make day in, day out. It's interesting, actually, because I was thinking earlier that I think credit scoring is a topic that actually leaves many people feeling a bit anxious. So, you know, I see kind of one of my objectives really is to try and break down those barriers. But I think there are probably parallels to numeracy as well. I think sort of getting to grips with everyday mathematics is something that a lot of people feel a little bit anxious about.
And would you give people who are listening any top tips for improving their credit score? That's a question I know I get asked an awful lot.
Yeah, well, very happy to. So, I mean, I think with any you know, aspect of life, particularly where you think you might have a bit of work to do, the starting point always is to take stock of the situation. So certainly in terms of you know, credit scores, you can check your credit report and/or your credit score for free on the Experian website and the other credit reference agencies too. Then you find out basically where you're at right now, and if there's room for improvement, then you'll find lots of tips, lots of guidance on the Experian website and other websites on the sorts of things you can do to start to increase your credit score. For example, like registering on the electoral roll. If you're not already, that can actually add about 50 points to the Experian credit score. Joseph was talking earlier about you know, sort of credit cards and the impact they can have on your financial track record. They are an important indicator, if you like, of your financial health, your reliability, your trustworthiness. So getting a credit card and managing it really carefully, keeping the balance low, making all of those monthly payments on time, ideally being granted, you know, a decent credit limit, because that shows another lender really trusts you. All of these things signal to a new lender that you're more, you know, likely to be the type of customer that they want to do business with.
Well, thanks, James. I can see on the chat stream getting some really good questions coming in. I've got one for you later, James, one for Joseph, and one for Kathy. So do send them in if you have more. But now, without further ado, I will introduce somebody who needs no introduction from me, quite frankly. Katja Jones. You would have seen her sashaying across your screens on Strictly Come Dancing, but she is also the National Numeracy Ambassador. Now, she is a person who uses numbers in her choreography, I'm told, as well as her everyday life. But Katja, thank you so much for being with me today. I have to say, all of my colleagues in the financial science are so excited that I'm interviewing you rather than the usual succession of bankers and politicians.
I can't tell you how excited I am. I listen to LBC all the time, so I'm very, very excited talking to you, and it's my privilege.
I'm going to crawl under the table and dance a foxtrot. But in all seriousness, why do you think it's so important to have confidence with numbers when it comes to making your money go further?
Do you know what? I'm actually sat here and I feel like I'm one of these people as well that tuning in to get an advice, and I'm learning so much, because you cannot stop learning about numbers, maths, or anything, any skill. You've got to keep improving, and that's what I do, you know, especially with finance. It's such a you know, complicated subject, but taking it back to basics from me personally is even just day-to-day budgeting and things like getting deals in the shops. Like, for example, now I know that when I look at the prices of two identical items, I actually have to work out how much I pay per 100 grams, because you might be buying cheaper packets, but you actually pay more per 100 grams. So even simple things like that, where sometimes we're not aware of. And also, do you know what for me is, I talk a lot about motivation, getting people, you know, to achieve their goals and dreams. Like, I even wrote a book on the motivation, getting to their goals. And one of the subjects is investing into yourself. And often, like, you hear things like, I really want to be a dancer, let's say, but I just can't afford it right now. But then if you actually took time to go through simple numbers, for example, it's a real life example. One of my friends really needed that extra lesson per week with a top coach to get to the top placement in national championships. And all we kept hearing is that I just can't afford it. I can't afford it. But what we actually realized, by cutting down one of his coffees a day, where he had a few, he could afford an extra £60 lesson a week. You know, it's just, I know it sounds really silly and simple, but it is something that you can then invest into you, into your goal, into your skill. I think this is really important. Or even just taking your monthly bill and writing down, where can I cut down on? What am I spending too much on? Am I taking cabs too many times? Am I taking takeaways when I can cook from home? Even simple things like that. And then you can invest into your passion, into your career, into, you know, achieving your goals and dreams, because I really, you know, try to encourage people to go for it always. And this is where it can really help for you. And personally, for me, I just feel that that bit of power not to get myself in trouble or fraud or, you know, into debt and things like that.
Yeah.
So you just gain that bit of power in everyday basics. That's what it is for me.
Mastery of your money, you could call it, but it is a really great feeling. And I invest some time, you know, every month making a plan for my money that month. Like you say, doing a budget. You can use budgeting apps, you can use digital banking, you could use, you know, just old-fashioned pen and paper, or if you're a bit of a whiz with Excel, make an Excel spreadsheet. But I think the crucial thing is to, you know, not be afraid to get your hands on those numbers. Now, Katja, what advice would you give to anyone who is feeling a little bit overwhelmed with their finances right now?
Oh, and we 100% all are feeling in this, you know, sort of after the crisis, really, and still going through it. I think it's important not to avoid it. It's really important. Like, I've got this example where when I came to this country, I didn't speak really well. No, I spoke well, but I had no confidence in talking to people on the phone. And I always tried to avoid it. I always tried to get someone else speak on my behalf or something. And then I just went, no, I've got to just face it. And only through facing it and improving, I can get better at it and gain confidence. So do not avoid it. And at the same time, I'm still the same. Don't be ashamed or scared to ask again and again and again if you don't understand. Sometimes I get this bill at home, and you know how it looks. It's just numbers. And you go, geez, and why is that? Why is that? And I pick up the phone and I ask them questions. And until I understand, what am I paying for? And is this correct? Or what is this deal? What does it really mean? I do not let go. And I don't care if I look silly. I don't care if they're fed up of me. I'm going to keep asking, because I don't want to get myself in a situation where just because of, you know, feeling a little bit ashamed of not understanding numbers, I'll get myself in trouble. So definitely do not avoid it, and don't be afraid to just keep asking questions, keep asking for help. There's so many resources as well, just like National Numeracy, that can help you with it as well.
Well, brilliant advice. Anybody watching, embrace your inner Katja. If you feel fear when you're dealing with your numbers, just pretend you're her. Phone up your providers and give them hell. Now, at this point, I'm going to hand over to Sam Sims, who is the Chief Executive of National Numeracy. He's going to round up our discussions today with a key message. Then if we've got time, we'll do a few quick questions. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks very much, Claire. Just to say, National Numeracy is all about supporting children and adults in the UK to get on with numbers so that they can get on in life. And Numeracy, as we've heard, is about how we understand and work with numbers in everyday situations, like being able to make our money go further, and so much so about feeling more in control. I think my one key message is that taking steps to develop your confidence with numbers can help make things feel much less daunting, and most importantly, over time, can help us feel more in control of our finances. And when we're in that kind of position, it's the right position to be in, to be able to help us make decisions about money that can help our finances go much, much further. So I would just say that however you feel about numbers and maths, and whatever impact that is having on how you manage your money, whatever that is, you're not alone. And at National Numeracy, we are here to offer support to you, always on your terms.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that message, Sam. We've got time for two very quick questions. Joseph, somebody has a friend or a relative who they think has debt problems. They say, how would you recommend that I approach debt and overspending with somebody I know who needs help? What would your advice be there?
My thing would be to approach the conversation from a place of empathy, because that person knows the situation they're in. They feel the pain, they feel the guilt on a day-to-day basis whenever they're reminded, whether that's someone calling to collect the money or whether that's going to the ATM machine and seeing numbers you don't want. So the first step is really going with that empathetic approach rather than an accusatory approach, and then helping them get to grips with the numbers, because once you know how much you've now got a North Star to bring down to 0, and you can start making a plan, which then it's just maths. It's just addition and subtraction from that point onwards. And then you can get creative. Do I need to get some side hustles? Do I need to sell some of the stuff I bought to get me into this situation like I did? It now becomes a bit more of a game once you've got a target.
Yeah, and very important that they're there to share. You're somebody that they can share their problems with, because talking about debt is very, very hard for people to do. Katja, you were nodding there. Is there something you wanted to add to help Maurice with this?
I just feel it's so important to have somebody who's going to sit you down and go, right, what's the plan?
Yeah.
How can we help you? How can we fix you? And not just in maths, but in any situation. I've had friends like that. It's important to know these people.
Brilliant. Now, a question is coming for you, Kathy. What helped you to control that maths anxiety and help get the burden off your shoulders? Tell us about that. Thanks for the question, Ben.
I think working with National Numeracy, I realised that maths anxiety is just the same as any other kind of anxiety that you might have. So, for instance, if you're learning to drive, you feel anxious and you can't do it, but the reason you're taking driving lessons is so that you can learn to do it. And we were asked to look at situations like that, and that really worked for me, because it's like I sort of started thinking, it's not that I can't do maths. I think I can't do it, but actually I just tell myself I can't do it. And so when I've been working on it, and when I was doing the fractions, I actually found that I was enjoying it, which I would never have thought I would say, but I was loving it. And I did a test online and I got 9 out of 10, and I was really upset with myself. And I thought, 6 months ago I wouldn't have got 1 out of 10. So, and the other thing is, be patient, because it doesn't happen overnight. Learning to drive doesn't happen overnight. You've got to keep working and working at it, and eventually you improve, and then you'll start to see the results. And I'm just so proud of myself because of what I've achieved and I've got out of that debt, and I'm just so happy for that. And I just say thank you to National Numeracy for all the help that I've had with that.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. It's such it's so amazing to hear these positive experiences of what happens when you do face your fears, particularly maths anxiety, get to grips with the numbers. And I really hope that it's been an inspiration for people who are watching. So we're going to round up now, starting with Joseph, just to take one key takeaway from today's discussion that you would leave with people who are watching, just to give them that little boost to get to grips with managing their money. Joseph, what would you like to leave us with?
I think the amount you owe is just a number, and focusing on that. If you can get on top of that number and accept it, you now have something to work towards. You now know your enemy, and now you get to work chipping away at it.
Very good. I like that. Kathy, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Joseph, and just say that, if you find your finances are getting out of control, don't bury your head in the sand like I did. Try and take control as soon as you can. And feeling confident with numbers really does help you to do that.
Fantastic. And James, what would you like to say to sum up?
Claire, I think I would just say, just take some time occasionally, make time to review your financial situation. So look at your budget, check your credit score, and take any opportunities you can to improve the way you manage money, to try and accelerate your financial goals in life. And
Katja, what would your last takeaway be?
I guess it's like we said, it's a skill, and just like Dan saying, maths is a skill that you can step by step improve on, which will then help you take control of the financial situation. So yeah, that's my side of it.
Well, to say my maths is a lot better than my dancing, which frankly you will be spared from. But Sam, lastly, did you want to add in your final tip for people?
I will just encourage everybody to start building their number confidence. You can do that through national numeracy, as I say, on your terms. And it's all about trying to bring that control back to you and so that you can have control over your finances, and confidence is absolutely a key part of that.
And the only thing I'd add is that you never stop learning. I'm still learning about money, and I've been writing about money at the Financial Times for an awfully long time, but it's the kind of things that you want to learn about as you get older might change. You know, if you're in your 20s and 30s, it could be that pensions are something that you're not very sure about, or it could be getting started in investing, or it could even be cryptocurrencies. I've been working on a big podcast coming out next week about that, because lots of young people are very, very confused. But just take a leaf out of Catcher's book, ask lots of questions, ask older relatives as well. They're often very, good sources of help and information. And of course, when it comes to the numbers, do search for Numeracy Day online to find the challenge. Now, I will sum up by reminding you that getting to grips with numbers can also boost your bank balance. It could supercharge your chances of securing a great job and also a great career. There is a link in the video when you're watching to the National Numeracy page on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. You can even follow them and me on Instagram, and Catcher, of course, who has more followers than all of us put together times 100. And don't forget, if you want to join the conversation on social media, use the hashtag National Numeracy Day. I'll be putting up a few little tips for you all later. But now, Claire in the Financial Times signing off. Everybody say goodbye. Thanks
See you
for
at the
joining us
after
today.
party.
Bye.
See you in the after party. I wish I was actually coming.